For more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. Statler and Waldorf, Deconstructionism, and the Art of Booing Everything. If you ever watched The Muppet Show, you know that there are two characters that never fail to make an appearance. These are Statler and Waldorf, the two old men heckling from the balcony. No matter what happens on the stage, be it an impressive performance, a heartfelt song, or a hilarious gag, they're there to jeer, sneer, and deliver punchlines at the expense of everyone else's hard work. They are masters of criticism, but contributors of nothing. Their entire act consists of tearing down what others have built without ever stepping out onto the stage themselves. In many ways, this is the spirit of postmodern deconstructionism. Whether applied to history, literature, culture, religion, or anything else, deconstructionists sit in their metaphorical balcony seats, mocking and dismantling traditions, institutions, and values, often without offering anything meaningful to take their place. While their critiques sometimes expose real flaws, their approach is inherently negative. Deconstructionism is not about refinement, renewal, or improvement. It is about demolition. And much like Statler and Waldorf, those who practice it rarely risk putting themselves out on the stage. Seeing no good, only flaws. To be fair, every society, including our own, has blind spots. Conservative patriots often see their forefathers and mothers as heroes while overlooking their imperfections and sins. Love for one's country, like love for one's parent, can sometimes be naive, willing to excuse or ignore faults in favor of admiration. A certain kind of historical sentimentality can make it difficult to grapple with past injustices truthfully. But deconstructionists do the opposite. They refuse to see anything good at all. Instead of an honest reckoning of both virtues and vices in a people, tradition, or civilization, they assume the worst from the outset. If an institution has flaws, then it must be fundamentally corrupt all the way down. If a historical figure had moral failings, then nothing they accomplish can be worth honoring. If a belief system has ever been used improperly, then it must be discarded entirely. Much like our two hecklers, deconstructionists take center stage only to point out the supposed absurdity of the whole production, forgetting that flawed as it may be, it is still a production. Tearing down a performance is easy. Writing, rehearsing, and performing one is very, very difficult. Take the case Abraham Lincoln. Someone recently asked me if I thought Abraham Lincoln was a good man. Well, I do. But the question behind the question is how do we measure goodness? And even more, is it fair to judge people in the past by the standards of today? It is true that by our standards, Lincoln said did things that would be considered racially insensitive at best or insufficiently progressive. But here's the crucial point. Lincoln wasn't a great man because he matched the ideals of the 21st century. He was great because courageously he advanced the moral arc of the 19th century. He lived in a time when slavery was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It was not only legal, but widely accepted, even in many churches. In that world, Lincoln led a deeply divided nation into a brutal war, yes, first to preserve the Union, but then ultimately to abolish slavery. His personal views evolved over time, moving from political expediency and compromise towards deeper moral convictions. That's not moral failure, that's moral courage and process. As Winston Churchill once said, I'm not as concerned with being consistent as I am with being right. We don't honor Abraham Lincoln because he was perfect. We honor him because he saw farther out than most, risked more than many, and made a decisive impact for justice in his time. Judging with historical humility. To hold historical figures to today's standards without context is to ignore how moral progress actually happens. It's often slow, contested, costly, and it usually happens because someone like Abraham Lincoln pushes ahead of their time, not because they've reached moral perfection. There's a humility required here in looking at the past. As C.S. Lewis once warned against chronological snobbery, we must remember that our own error has blind spots too. Future generations may look back and ask why we failed to see clearly. And if we demand perfection from our ancestors, we leave no one to admire, and no one to learn from. Act 2, just a ruined stage. Criticism has its place. Any good society must be able to reflect on its own failures and injustices. But criticism without construction is useless. Statler and Waldorf have the luxury of mocking everything because they're never going to be asked to be out on the stage trying to accomplish something better. Similarly, the deconstructionist only tears down. It does not, they do not, build. This is the key problem with the deconstructionist movement in literature, history, art, culture, or anything else. They dismantle without replacing. They remove old structures but provide no new foundations. They insist that past traditions are oppressive but fail to articulate a future that's anything but fragmented and cynical. If everything is suspect, then nothing is sacred, and if nothing is sacred, then there's nothing worth preserving, celebrating, or fighting for. When the balcony critics take over, the show eventually stops. If every institution is deemed irredeemable, if every story is rewritten as a tragedy, if every past generation is condemned without understanding, then there's no act left to perform. All that remains will be an empty stage. We must have the courage to build. Deconstructionism appeals to those who feel cheated by the stories they were told growing up. They see the contradictions in history, the injustices in their culture, the hypocrisies in their leaders. But cynicism alone is not wisdom. To truly engage with history, philosophy, or religion, or society, or art, or anything else, one must do more than criticize. It requires the courage to build. Our forefathers, foremothers were flawed, just as we are. They made mistakes, just as we do. But if all we do is tear them down, we lose the opportunity to refine what was good and to redeem what was broken. Deconstructionism offers no act two, no resolution, no hope. But the world does not need more Statlers and Waldorfs shouting from the balcony while the stage goes dark. The world needs builders, not just critics. So the question remains, will we stay in the balcony laughing at the wreckage, or will we step out on the stage and create something worth applauding? The phrase, "let us now praise famous men," comes from Ecclesiastes 44:1 in the Catholic apocryphal writings. The full verse reads, "Let us now praise famous men and our fathers who begat us." This passage introduces a section that honors the great figures of Israel's past, acknowledging their wisdom, their leadership, and the contributions they made to society. The phrase became well known beyond the biblical context, particularly through the 1941 book, "Let Us Now Praise Famous Men" by James Agee and Walker Evans, which documented the lives of sharecroppers during the Great Depression. The New Testament book of Hebrews takes up the same kind of celebration, as it gives us a long list of heroes to venerate. In Hebrews 11:32 through 34, we read, "And what more shall we say? For it would fail me to tell you of Gideon, of Barak, of Samson, of Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions." Both passages, Ecclesiastes 44 and Hebrews 11, celebrate the legacy of great men and women from the past. However, Hebrews 11 emphasizes faith in God as the defining characteristic of their greatness, whereas Ecclesiastes focuses more on their wisdom, achievements, and leadership.